Hello, my name is Wild Lee of Wild Lee Tarot, and this is your message for the week as we step into this next new year of 2021. Thank you for the grace. I know this message is a few days late. I've been through a personal emergency, and I am here and ready to channel the message for the collective as well as for myself. Thank you so much for your patience and kindness. So here we are. We just left the full moon earlier this week, and we're moving towards the new year, the linear new year rather. For myself, I felt the new year really shift on solstice as we stepped into this new age that we are entering into energetically. But on the calendar, we step into 2021. And I'm really sensing that this first card is really speaking about that shift. You know, in our culture, New Year's has this big story around it. It's a time where we can fix all our failings, where we can make those New Year's resolutions. We can tidy up loose ends and suddenly become a different person. And the first card that came forward, it feels like the medicine card this week. We received the Devil. And the Devil speaks to patterns and habits that we engage in that are of an addictive nature, that have a compulsory quality to them. Things that we fall back into when our nervous systems feel jacked, when they feel unsupported, and we as animal bodies require comfort. So this can be different things for many different people. It can range on a spectrum. It can be anything from alcohol, drugs, and sex addiction to smoking cigarettes, overeating, compulsive buying online, anything in this spectrum of choices that we might lean into when we're feeling unsafe or ungrounded. And we've leaned into them enough over our lifetime that they've become a set pattern, a neural pathway, a groove in the brain that is magnetic in its pull, that we fall into when we don't feel as stoic or strong or on firm foundation as we normally do. Things just aren't really going our way. And let's be honest, 2020 has been a linear year for ungroundedness. It has definitely shaken the foundation underneath most of our feet. So there's no judgment here. There's no shame. There's no shoulds or have-tos. It's simply an eye-opening understanding. Oh, I am a human. I am an animal body. I'm an energetic being in this animal body having a human experience. And it's not felt safe for many, many moons. That is just the truth. And so as I'm touching this card and feeling into the energy of this week, we have this New Year's Eve, this idea of resolution, this idea of change. And what I'm sensing with the Devil is, let's not allow that old story to be an addictive pattern that we fall into, thinking that we can wish our way into 2021 into something new. You know, things have shifted. The paradigm has shifted, the timelines have shifted, and we are moving in a new direction with a lot of haste and speed. Things are on the move. And while this whole idea of resolution and making this new year is quite a comforting thought, it can also be an old pattern that holds us in place in thinking that we're still returning to some normal that we can plan around, and that just simply isn't true. We haven't really landed collectively into what the new paradigm is. We just know that everything that was was no longer working for us on many, many, many levels. It's not working for us to live in white supremacy culture. It's not working for us to live in patriarchal systems. It's not working for all of us to be in the systems that we're in. And it's not working for the planet. And we have seen that because we are living through a time of mass extinction. We're living through a time of a pandemic. We're living through a time where things are just unwell. And that's not being said to scare you. You know, it just is what it is. And we have no idea. This might very well be one of the cycles of this planet. This may very well have happened many times before. I don't say these things in order to create a fear response. It's simply an awareness. It's a comment to bring awareness. We're in a time of great change. And the truth is, we've always been in times of great change, but right now, the stakes are much higher because there are so many more of us, and we are having such a huge effect on our communities, on our countries, and on our planet in general. And we are being asked, we are being called forward to begin living in tandem with the people and the sentient life on this planet. And so as I touch the devil here, it says, let's not waste time with this idea of making these New Year's resolutions of losing that 5 pounds or getting the house clean or da-da-da-da-da. All of those things are beautiful. They're beautiful, and we should always be working towards our own self-improvement and self-care. And can we step out of that old way of thinking simply about us, and perhaps in this New Year time, this week, start thinking collectively, start thinking a little more expansively, and maybe in our manifestation processes, can we start to think about how we can be of service? How can we be of service? Not just to ourselves, not just to our families, but to our communities, both locally and moving outward through the macrocosm, through the collective, as we are being pressed forward into this timeline where it is change or go extinct, evolve or die. That is the crux of what we're moving towards, and we have the potentiality to do so. We are in the midst of the technology age, this age that will be captured in history books. We have absolutely no idea what this huge explosion of technology is going to do to our brains, to our children's brains. It could be marvelous and it could be detrimental. We don't know. But what we do know is that we're here. We've made these choices. Our ancestors, a few generations back, have made these choices, and here we are. So what are we going to do here in this moment? Are we going to continue to remain complacent and remain thinking only of ourselves? Or are we going to step forward as we enter 2021, the year of the high priest, and begin to embody our service on this planet? And that is what the two supporting cards show here for me. They're both air element cards. They're both from the Suit of Wands. And that is also this new age that we've moved into, the age of Aquarius, the air sign, expansiveness. It's all about allowing ourselves to begin to think outside of the box instead of being inside of the box and contained within these structures of the mind and of society. We are being asked to now step on top of that box and use it as the foundation as we begin to decolonize ourselves, as we begin to become more aware of the truth of our planet and our reality, and as we begin to work together to create the next reality that we want to be a part of. So the first support card that we have here is the Three of Wands. And this card really speaks to looking clearly at how we make our living, how we make income. It speaks of business and really starting to look it squarely in the eye. I'm seeing this card as a request and a calling forward for all of us to begin getting really clear on where we're spending our money. We have a system that's based on currency right now, and we're not in a place at the moment to rid ourselves of that currency. So how do we use that currency in order to influence and create what we're looking for? And I'm not sure what that answer is for you, but for myself, it is using that currency by spending it locally, spending it on things that come from the land where I reside, using it to support the peoples who used to live on this land where I reside prior to it being colonized. I use my monies to support people who are in other healing modalities that support my mind, body, heart, and soul, rather than using it to compulsively shop on Amazon or other large companies that may or may not really be supporting the people that work for them. So this card is a request for us to not only look at money as a symptom of scarcity mindset or abundance mindset, but also to look at it as a tool that we can employ for both personal and community economic liberation. And then the second support card that came forward, we've got, sorry, that's Finn saying hello. We have the Queen of Wands. And so the queens, this is always the archetype. I'm really sensitive to genderized language, and I recently was gifted the word magnetic to use rather than feminine, and the word electric to use rather than masculine. So I'm going to be working those into my language with these messages. And I highly encourage you to consider what that feels like and what that means to you, to maybe remove some of that duality and gender bias from the way we talk about these things. And so for me, we've got the Queen here. And so this would traditionally have been a feminine archetype, but let's call it a magnetic archetype, one that receives, one that draws in. And so this is the archetype of going inward and down to look for this expansive information. Whereas the King would be the electric archetype that goes outward to look for this intuition, this information. So for this week, as we step into this new linear year with the Queen of Wands, we're being invited to, again, go inward and really touch in on our own personal intuition about what we want to manifest and call in and call forward into this High Priest year of 2021. And I know I've said that a couple of times. And the archetype of the High Priest is the one that takes up space with their voice, that really speaks their truth, that really is so clear on who they are and what they believe, that they're able to speak for and stand for those belief systems. So they're not simply going with the flow or influenced by those around them. They have very strong convictions around what is true for them, and they help support and guide others in finding their own convictions. And so that's what we're moving into. We're moving out of an emperor year where we were all invited to take up space on our own. This entire year energetically has been this archetype of the emperor, of claiming our boundaries, of taking up space, of learning what we believe. And we've all learned that. And it's been really clear in a lot of our online and personal discussions. And so now we're moving forward into this next year, clear who we are, touching in on our own truth, our own intuition. And how do we take that forward with conviction and use it not to divide and conquer one another, but to support one another, to give each other the space to have our own truth and have our own sacred point of view? And how can we all work in tandem And the way that we do that is by knowing who we are so that we can be clear and speak to our boundaries. And then once we know everyone's boundaries, we know where we all stand, we can actually respect those boundaries. We can actually show up for one another by listening, by holding a compassionate heart, and by clearly hearing and seeing what each other needs in order for us to function as a whole, cohesive, and healthy civilization. And if it's not working for some of us, then it's not working for all of us. And that is the mental shift that I'm really feeling is being required of us as we evolve into this next stage of human development. That if it's not working for some of us, the acceptance that even if it might have been working for me, and this is speaking as a white person and a white woman, that doesn't mean that it was working for everyone. And I need to accept that and the responsibility of that as well. That feels like the strong message. It's really coming through today. And the word that came forward to support us, willingness. Are we willing? Are we willing to show up for this work collectively, for the planet, for our people, for all people? Do we have a willingness cultivated inside of us to look at ourselves, to perhaps look at harm we have caused, to look at ways in which we have behaved without fully knowing or thinking of the consequences and making reparations? Are we willing simply to look at ourselves and try to be the best? And I mean best not in a perfectionist way, but best as in authentic, honest, truthful, and willing to shift the way nature has taught us, because everything shifts. It shifts moment to moment to moment. And there is no real safety in life. We are safe knowing who we are, knowing who our boundaries are, what our boundaries are, and knowing that everything is changing and that the universe has been conspired to meet our needs. And sometimes not getting our needs met is also going to benefit us in the long run. But it's not always comfortable. It's not always easy. And if we can all begin to show up for one another and respect each other's boundaries and needs to the best of our abilities, we can support one another through these changes and this process. And the stone that came forward, the Selenite Egg, which has come forward a few times this year. So the Selenite Egg is truly about... Didn't turn my phone off, excuse me. The Selenite Egg is truly about knowing that we're in a transformation process. We are simply in a transformation process. We can't rush it. We can't fight it. We are in the shell. If we tried to push it faster than it's going, we would not be able to have the tenacity and strength to move through to the other side of this evolution. All is exactly as it's meant to be. All is exactly right, and we are on this ride together. All is well. We just have to continue to support ourselves, support one another, keep showing up, and continue releasing any hold that we might have that next year is going to go back to the way it was in 2019. It's not. It's not going back, and that's okay. It's exactly right. It's time for things to shift, and there are no better people than the ones that are present now, here, today, to help support that shift as we move forward. That is your message for the week and into 2021. I hope that it serves you well. I hope that you have everything that you need. I'm sending so much love and gratitude to each one of you. And I'm going to end there. Take good care, and I will see you in 2021.